I want to bring in NewsNation senior national security contributor and retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton to talk more about the situation and the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico, given the debate that's happening. Good morning to you, as always. Senator Lindsey Graham also went on to say that he wants to blow the cartels up. Pretty strong words. What are the concerns, the logistics, the implications of potential U.S. military action against the cartels in Mexico?
Well, very strong words indeed, Marni. Let me also add that Senator Joe Manchin, I believe on Chris Cuomo's show a couple nights or so ago, also lined up, I think, fairly close to Senator Graham in terms of, putting forth legislation for identifying the Mexican cartels, the top three Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. But that would provide, if that legislation got through the Congress, and I think that's absolutely key, that would authorize the president to use military forces, based on his judgment. It doesn't necessarily mean U.S. military forces would be used, but they would be necessarily available then by law to go after these cartels in Mexico, principally to go after the key drug pens, to go after the lieutenants, to certainly neutralize the organization in terms of the drug labs and so forth, and also put on notice that the United States means business by seeing that these Mexican drug cartels are a clear and present danger, and that we would indeed would have the ability to use a very small special elite military forces to take them out if the president deemed that to be appropriate action.
Right. A lot of ifs here, but how would that complicate U.S.-Mexico relations if the U.S. is short of putting boots on the ground targeting cartels in Mexico? What authority would the U.S. government have?
Well, authority would have certainly would have the authorities based on what the Congress provides in that legislation. But you're right. It does put in a very difficult balance that key ally relationship we have with Mexico, especially on the economic and trades front. And so that's very, very difficult. But again, you have to look at what's the priority here. The priority is to protect the American people, and the Drug Enforcement Agency and a number of other organizations, U.S. intelligence, has said that they are a danger to the American people. The fentanyl that's come out of these labs has killed up to 100,000 Americans each year and so forth. And also yesterday, two combatant commanders, one being General Laurie Richardson, who's a commander of U.S. Southern Command, who oversees Latin America and Central America, said that it's not necessarily just Mexico drug cartels, but the sources of this fentanyl, the chemicals, actually are sourced in China, as well as the financing for a lot of the drug cartels that come through Chinese national banks. So it's not just the Mexico cartels. It's not just our relationship with Mexico, although that's very important. It's much broader than that as well.
Right. And some lawmakers have been critical that the Mexican government just hasn't done enough. So it's time for the U.S. to step in, that we're running out of options.
Well, the Mexican government is also, it's become a near narco state, just like Senator Graham said. And so they could be willing, but they just don't have the capacity or the capability to do so. And let's also keep in mind this idea of, creating, this legislation that would designate the cartels as a foreign terrorist organization also relates to what we could do here in the United States. The DEA's assessment also says that there are 60 American cities where these Mexican cartels are operating. And that would give us more legislation to certainly freeze their assets from a financial and economic standpoint, but also added resource to prosecute in our American neighborhoods. So it's not just one aspect of putting military forces in harm's way to do this, but it's a whole other part of the U.S. national security apparatus to be able to take down these cartels.
It is a complex issue, and it's an important discussion that we've been having here at NewsNation for months leading up to the kidnapping of these four Americans, the cartels seemingly operating with impunity. We'll see if that continues. Lieutenant General Richard Newton, as always, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Marni. Good morning.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.